Sometimes, the people who smile the most at work are the ones carrying the heaviest pain in silence. When Richard Hale, one of the country's most feared and respected business tycoons, accidentally walked into a homeless shelter on a cold December night, he never imagined he would see his secretary, Emily Carter, serving food to strangers, wearing a borrowed jacket, and looking nothing like the polished assistant he knew. But what shocked him even more wasn't her presence there. It was the heartbreaking truth he uncovered about her life. What Richard chose to do next didn't just change Emily's world. It changed his own forever. If the story touched your heart, show your love, like, share, and comment your thoughts. And subscribe to our channel. Richard Hale had built his empire on precision, discipline, and an almost ruthless sense of control. To the outside world, he was the perfect example of a self-made billionaire. Tailored suits, private jets, skyscraper offices, and boardrooms that trembled when he entered. But inside, Richard was a lonely man, hardened by betrayal and losses that money could never fix. Emily Carter had worked as Richard's secretary for nearly 2 years. She was efficient, soft-spoken, and always seemed cheerful. She never missed a deadline, never complained, and never asked for more than what was given. To Richard, she was another reliable employee, useful, dependable, invisible in a way. He admired her quiet work ethic but never looked beyond the files and appointments she handled. One Friday evening, Richard left the office late. Snow had begun to fall heavily, and his driver suggested a shortcut to avoid traffic. That's how Richard's car stalled near an old church basement, where warm light spilled through cracked windows and people lined up outside. Curious, Richard stepped out. He intended only to make a quick call, but his gaze froze when he saw her. Emily. She wasn't in her pencil skirt or neat blouse. She was wearing a faded sweater, her hair tied back messily, handing out trays of food with a tired but genuine smile. At first, Richard assumed she was volunteering. But then he noticed something. The way she slipped her portion of food aside as if saving it for later, the way one of the shelter workers handed her a blanket with familiarity, and the way her shoulders carried a weight no one at the office had ever seen. Richard didn't reveal himself that night. Instead, he stood in the shadows, shaken. Why would his secretary, someone so put together at work, be at a shelter, possibly living there? The following Monday, Richard couldn't focus. He watched Emily more closely. She came in early as always, typing quietly, answering calls, managing schedules. She smiled when spoken to, but her eyes had a certain tiredness he'd missed before. That evening, instead of going home, Richard followed discreetly when she left the office. His black car stayed a block behind as Emily walked, not toward an apartment, but toward the same shelter. Richard finally confronted her the next day. "Emily," he said in his office, his tone unusually soft. "I need to ask you something and I want the truth. Do you live at the St. Mark's shelter?" Emily froze. Her pen slipped from her fingers. Her lips parted as if to deny it, but her eyes betrayed the truth. After a long silence, she nodded. The confession poured out like water breaking a dam. Emily had once lived in a small apartment with her mother, who battled cancer. Medical bills drained every savings. When her mother passed, Emily couldn't keep up with rent. She had no siblings, no close relatives. Pride kept her from telling anyone. By day, she worked at Richard's office, determined to keep her dignity. By night, she slept in the shelter, hiding the truth behind her calm professionalism. "I didn't want anyone to know," Emily whispered, tears threatening to fall. I didn't want pity. I needed to stand on my own, even if it meant hiding where I went at night." Richard, for the first time in years, was speechless. He had faced boardroom betrayals, corporate wars, scandals, but this quiet resilience broke him. Something shifted in him that day. He began to notice little things. The shoes Emily wore were worn thin, her lunch breaks were always just coffee, and she never joined office outings. She had been invisible not because she wanted to be, but because the world never looked close enough. The more Richard learned, the more he respected her. Emily, who had so little, still spent her evenings serving food at the shelter instead of just receiving it. Her dignity was stronger than any fortune. One night, Richard returned to the shelter, this time walking in openly. Emily's eyes widened in shock. "Mr. Hale?" she whispered, embarrassed. But Richard smiled, a rare, genuine smile. "I came to help." From that night onward, he joined her at the shelter, quietly learning about the lives of people he'd ignored in his world of wealth. For the first time, he felt more human than Tycoon. Weeks passed, and Richard made a decision that startled everyone. At a company-wide meeting, he announced a new housing initiative for employees facing hardship, fully funded apartments and medical support programs. While the employees applauded, Emily sat in the crowd, stunned, knowing deep down this was his way of protecting people like her. But Richard wasn't done. Privately, he handed Emily a set of apartment keys. "This isn't charity," he told her firmly when she protested. "This is recognition. You've shown me what resilience looks like. You've worked harder with nothing than most do with everything. I won't let that go unseen." Emily broke down, tears rolling down her face for the first time in front of him. "I don't know how to thank you." "You already have," Richard said softly. "You reminded me what it means to care." From then on, Emily's life transformed. She moved into her own place, rebuilt her confidence, and eventually rose within the company. Not because Richard favored her, but because her strength had always been there, waiting to be seen. And Richard? He changed too. The shelter visits became a routine. He no longer measured his success in profit margins but in lives touched. In the end, a business tycoon and his secretary found something neither had expected: hope, dignity, and the reminder that behind every quiet smile, there's a story waiting to be seen. Sometimes the strongest people are those who suffer silently. All it takes is someone to notice, to care, to change not just one life but the world around them.